Things haven't been going very well. You're joining me here nearly 45 minutes into the $5.50 Bounty Hunter tournament on Party Poker. I've basically just been sitting here itching to get involved, but I've been totally card dead. Until now, because now I've got Ace Queen under the gun. I've got an easy open, but I see an instant 3-bet from the player on my left. Now I'm not overly happy with this, considering I've been so snug so far. He must have something pretty good to be able to 3-bet an under the gun open. My hand's too good to fold though, so I make the call, and I'm rewarded with a monster flop of Ace Queen 5. I've got top 2 pairs and really want to put some more chips in because I'm desperate to get paid here, but I think I've got to check to the aggressor and let him c-bet, and c-bet he does, just over quarter pot. I think a lot of the time it would be right to just call here, but to be honest with you, the blood rushes to my head and I get pretty greedy. I shove all in, praying he's got something he just can't fold, and I get lucky. He calls and shows Ace King off. I've got so lucky here, and the run out doesn't help him, so I get a full double up. Just a few hands later, it's my turn to play Ace King, and hopefully with a bit more luck than the last guy. The under the gun player opens and chooses quite a big size of 3.5 bigs. It folds to me and I decide to get a bit tricky, and I just call on the button. We go heads up to the flop, and again it's a cracker, Ace 4-3. I've got top pair with the highest possible kicker. The under the gun player c-bets and goes big. He bets full pot and I snap call. I think my hand is hugely under rep, so I want to let him keep firing. The turn is a 5, putting 4 to the straight out there. Now I'm not really worried about him having a 2 though when he's opened so big pre-flop. Then he overbets the pot, pushing all in for 42 big blinds. No way I'm folding here. If he's got a set, good luck to him. The money's all in and he shows Ace Jack. I've got him drawing so thin, just 3 outs for the win. But instead the dealer adds insult to injury to the poor fella and puts out a king on the river to give me an unneeded 2 pair. I've gone from not many chips to having a whole boatload in just 2 hands. Nice. 20 minutes later I'm sitting in 7th place and registration's closed. I've been playing pretty sensibly up until now, but when the button opens and I've got Queen 10 off in the small blind, I can't help myself and I make a call that I probably shouldn't be making. The big blind must have a real dog of a hand because he folds and we see a flop of King Jack 8. Being open-ended here is a pretty good result, so I don't hate it. When I check and the button c-bets for half pot, I'm definitely going to call and see a turn, and what a turn it is. The ace of diamonds gives me the nuts, but I keep my cool and check again. The button carries on putting money into the pot. He goes for half pot of 6 big blinds, and this is where I think I lose my head a little bit. With some people seeming so desperate to give me all of their money, I figure that everyone's going to carry on doing that all game, right? So I raise and I go big. I go all in, but the button quickly folds. That's not an ideal way to work, but a win is a win. There's not much to talk about here really, but it just shows the kind of day I've been having so far. I raise in the hijack with pocket aces. It folds to the small blind, who shoves all in for 35 bigs. It's back to me, and obviously I'm going to snap call with the best possible hand. He shows pocket tens, and everything goes according to plan. I even end up with a full house on the river and a pile more chips to add to my stack. Why can't every game be like this? 5 minutes later and I've got yet another monster hand. This time, pocket kings in middle position. I open and the low jack on my left makes the call. Things get a bit more interesting though, because the cut-off raises to 10 bigs and then the button cold calls. It's back onto me and I think there's enough in the pot to make it worthwhile winning right now, so I just shove all in. I'm not expecting the middle position player to call after just calling the original raise, and he folds. The 3-better in the cut-off doesn't want the smoke either, and he folds, so I think I'm probably just taking it down. But the button surprises me and he quickly makes the call. He's got pocket jack, so I'm miles ahead. The flop is 10-7-5. That's no good for him. I just need to fade a jack or running cards and I'll have a huge stack of 173 big blinds with just 30 players left. The run out is beautiful and I'm now the chip leader. It turns out though that not all hands are monster pocket pairs, and this time I've got to slum it with just a suited king. I'm in the small blind when the under the gun opens and it folds round to me, and I think why not? I've got chips, will play, so I call. The big blind's into and I continue with this heater when I flop 2 pair King 10-9 rainbow. It looks good to me. The original raiser c-bets 1/3 and I call, and the big blind comes along. The 5 of hearts on the turn feels like a total brick. So it checks to the under the gun player who isn't slowing down, and he bets 9 bigs. I'm still happy to call, but this time the big blind gets out of there. The river is a horrible card, the jack of clubs. Any queen obviously now beats me, and there could be a hell of a lot of them in his range. I don't know what to do if he fires for a third time. I check to him and I've got everything crossed for a check back. Somehow I get it. I don't know what he had, but my 2 pair's good, and I extend my lead a little bit more. So fast forward half an hour, we're down to just 15 players and in the money. I'm sitting in second place with still over 100 big blinds, so everything's going so well. It's time for another premium hand, and this time we're going with the jacks flavour. I'm on the button and I'm looking at an open from the middle position player. I've got chips and I want bounties, so I 3-bet to 9 big blinds. I was kind of hoping to take this one heads up with middle position, but the small blind has other ideas and makes a rare 4-bet to 21.5 bigs. He has a decent stack and could put a serious dent in my chips. It folds to me in position, and I think the best idea is to call here and see what happens. The flop comes Queen 6-5 and the small blind checks to me. With an overcard on the flop, I see my pair as a marginal made hand, so a check behind feels fine. The turn is the 3 of spades and the small blind checks again. I can't help thinking it's super unlikely he would check a better hand to me twice, and I go for a half pot bet, but I bottle it just at the last minute. There's no way I could call a check raise here, but I do have a lot of showdown value, so I'll just check it. If the river is a brick and he checks for a third time, maybe I can go for some value then. But the river is not playing ball. It's the king of spades, which is another scary overcard. So even when he checks again, I go for the safe boring play of checking it back. My jacks are good, and even though it could have been more, it's still a nice size pot to win. We're down to 11 players now, and I am the chip leader. The great hands are still coming thick and fast, and this time I've got ace queen off under the gun. I open and it folds round to the big blind who makes the call. When your luck's in, your luck's in. The flop comes Queen 6-5, giving me top again. It checks to me, and I c-bet on the bigger side to 2/3 pot. If I didn't have the video to prove it, I don't think people would believe me, but I get check raised again. The big blind snap shoves all in for 35 bigs. He's got the biggest bounty at the table, and I've got a great hand, so let's have it. Cards are flipped, and he's got top pair too, but he's only got a 7 kicker. Now this would be a painful hand to lose. Just got to dodge that 7, and I do. Nice pot, nice bounty, nice stack. Final 10, and I'm still chip leader. Shit's getting real now. So I'm on the final table bubble now, playing 5-handed. I've got an absolutely huge stack on my table, and when I see the hijack player shove for 13 bigs, the cutoff calls for 4 bigs, and I've got ace 10, I think it's an easy call with the bounties being up for grabs. 33 big blinds in the middle and over $6 in bounties are at stake when the cards are flipped over, and I see I'm not in good shape. Both players have got me outkicked because they're both holding ace jack off. Not what I was hoping for, but it doesn't really hurt. I've still got a huge stack. So we go to the flop, and I don't know why I was worrying. Of course I'd hit a 3-outer and then fade the queen on the turn and the river. As easy as that. Now, I've made my first final table since starting this, and what a way to do it. So we've already lost 1 player on the final table, and we're down to 7 players now. I've got a significant chip lead over everyone else, and I'm sitting with 142 big blinds. I'm under the gun when I get king jack offsuit. I think it's definitely good enough to open up with, so that's what I do. Folds round to the cutoff, who is the shortest stack, and he shoves all in. Folds back round to me, and for just another 6.5 bigs, I think I've got to make the call and try and get the knockout. He turns over ace 9 of diamonds, and I'm behind. To make matters worse, he hits an ace straight away on the flop. The run out doesn't help me, and I double him up. It's all good though, because I've still got a huge pile of chips. In the next hand, the action folds round to the cut-off player, who is now the short stack. He might not have many chips, but he does have a huge bounty for this tournament. So when he shoves all in for 12 big blinds, I look at my hands on the button and for some reason decide that 10-3 offsuit is good enough to take him on with. I shove all in to isolate and the other players fold. Cards are flipped and he shows pocket 2s. Somehow I've found myself in a flip situation with a terrible hand. I'll take that. Jack 8-5 on the flops, no help to me. The turn pairs the board though and gives me a few more outs, but the river's a brick and I lose. I'm gutted because that bounty would have been nice, but let's be honest, I really didn't deserve to win that one. Next up, it folds to me on the button. I open with Jack 10 offsuit and the small blind, who's only got 3 bigs, shoves all in. Sadly, the big blind, who's in second place, makes the call too, and we go to a flop. It comes ace king 6 with 2 hearts. I've got a gut shot, but the 2 overs are pretty scary. It checks to me, and I think I just have to c-bet in this situation. The big blind could easily have missed, and I at least have some equity. I go half pot and the big blind calls. The turn is an interesting one though. It's another heart, bringing in the potential flushes, but it's the queen of hearts that gives me a straight. The big blind checks to me again. I'm not really sure what to do here. Flushes obviously beat me, and if here's something like a king of hearts, a check raise on the turn would put me in a spot. So in the end, I go for the safe option and check behind. Just want to see what he does on the river. The river's the 10 of clubs, so now I'm chopping with any other jack. But when he checks again for a third time, no one's doing that with a flush here, I don't think. I go for some value on the river. I bet 2/3, and he pretty quickly folds. The small blind turns over king queen. He made 2 pair on the turn, but it's not good enough. I get his bounty, and we're down to 6 players. My run of amazing hands continues when I get dealt pocket aces under the gun. I obviously open it up and it folds round to the big blind player, who's the guy with the big old bounty. He calls and we go to the flop of queen 9-8. He checks to me and I bet 2/3 pot. He couldn't get his money in any quicker and he snap calls. The turn is a brick 4 hearts, and when he checks again, all I see is his bounty, and I overbet, forcing him all in if he wants to call. I'm happy to see him snap call because I can't even imagine I'd be losing, not with the way things have been going today. But he turns over Jack 10. He flopped the nuts and I'm drawing dead. Well, that was not the plan. 15 minutes later, and boy have things changed a bit. The good news is I'm heads up. The bad news is I've lost nearly all of my chips. Nothing really spectacular's happened, just some hands that I've opened and totally whiffed the flop, or been bet off it before even seeing the flop. Still, a comeback from here is possible. 2 double ups and I'm back in the lead. It's probably worth saying here that I don't have much experience playing heads up, so I have even less of an idea what I'm doing here than I do at a full table. All I'm sure is that I need to be playing a lot more hands, so that's what I do. The button opens and I've got Jack 7 in the big blind. I should defend with pretty much any face card, I think, so I call and we get a flop of king 10-6 all hearts. I've got a good flush draw here and some backdoor straight draws, so I'm happy to call his small c-bet. The turn is the queen of clubs. Maybe that straight's coming in after all. I check again and the button again bets small. I've got so much equity here. I call again, hoping to hit something. Sadly, the river's the 8 of diamonds, no good for me. I check and the button checks behind, but I know I'm not good here. He turns over top pair and he extends his lead. I think Party Poker wants this game to end because the next hand the button opens and I've got pocket queens. I shove all in and he snap calls with ace jack off. He misses but does flop a straight draw. The turn is great for me when it comes another queen, but I still need to dodge that 5. Clean river, and now I'm really back in this thing. So we've played a good few hands now, and this guy has raised pretty much every button so far. This hand's no different, and I defend this time with king 9 off. I'm happy when the flop comes 9 high. I can't think of another hand that he hasn't c-bet either, so my plan here is to check raise him. So far so good. He c-bets small and I raise to 7 bigs. To be honest, I'm half expecting a fold here, but he makes the call and we see the 10 of hearts on the turn. I take the lead now after my check raise and I bet half pot. No snap decision here. The player takes a little time to think and then makes a play I wasn't expecting. He shoves all in. Now, he covers me and I have to think this one through. To be totally honest with you, I've got no idea what I should do here. He's been playing so aggressive in every hand so far. I think this could easily be a bluff with some kind of draw, maybe 8x of hearts. Having said that, he could have queen jack here for all I know. Like I said, I've got no idea what the right play is. Ultimately, with just second pair, I decide to wait for a better spot and I make the fold. 2 hands later and he's back on the button. Again he makes the raise and again I just call him. This time I've got Jack 6 off. Another top pair for me on the flop and I go for the same plan as last time. Let him c-bet and then go for the check raise. So I check. True to form, he bets and I raise. This time go for a larger size and make it 10 big blinds. He's not waiting for the turn this time though, and again he raises me, shoving all in. Now, he can't have it every time, can he? They do say a pair is hard to make heads up, and I've got the top one, so with my stack I'm happy to make the call. Looking for another double up to get back in this thing. Cards are flipped and he turns over Jack 4 off for a flop 2 pair. You've got to be shitting me, right? I need some help. Unfortunately, it doesn't come. The turn and the river are no help, and I finish second.